for that conversation around the message of this year's World Sickle Cell Day, as well as the impact and penetration of efforts to battle the killer disease in Nigeria. We're now being joined here in Lagos by Torubein Donyega, a sickle cell survivor and founder Beyond Sickle Cell Foundation. Good morning. Good to have you in the studio with us, Torubein.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Last Thursday was World Sickle Cell Day.
Yes.
What did that day remind you of, given the fact that you used to be, you're a survivor basically.
I am.
But then on Thursday, what went through your mind? And then talk to us about what your foundation does.
Yes, World Sickle Cell Day is a day set aside to raise awareness for sickle cell survivors, individuals living with sickle cell anemia. And that day for me was a reminder of the resilience of thousands and millions of sickle cell warriors, their battle, their journey through this complicated genetic disorder. So that day for me is a day of reflection. I looked through my journey for the first 26 years of my life, how I have lived with sickle cell anemia, and now being at the other side of it is it's amazing to say the least. And yes, that was what brought out the Beyond Sickle Cell Foundation. That was what made me, bring this out so that individuals living with sickle cell anemia could look at the other side of it and say, yes, we have hope. If this person can make it through, we can too. And when I was living with sickle cell anemia, I really didn't have that sort of mentorship. I didn't really see people, and that speaks to, the cure for sickle cell anemia. It is not yet widely known. It is not yet. People don't even know that there is a cure.
Is there a cure?
Yes.
What's the cure?
Bone marrow transplant is a cure. There's gene therapy that's also a cure, but it's not yet widely known. And this is the reason why I want to put myself out there, put my foundation out there, so that others living with sickle cell anemia can see that there is hope at the other end of it.
Can you explain to us a little bit about how you were cured? Did you have a bone marrow transplant, or did you have gene therapy? And was it done in Nigeria?
Yes, I had a bone marrow transplant. I know it was done in the United States, Dallas, Texas. I was schooling, I had my undergraduate degree in the United States, and things got bad for me when I first got there. I started developing complications after complications, and it didn't seem as if I was going to survive it. And the doctors there recommended that in fact, they told me we wouldn't give you past the next 5 years if something is not done about this. So they recommended me to a doctor, Dr. John Matthews of Medical City, Dallas, and he was like, yeah, we're going to get the transplant done. And that was where I had my transplant after a series of chemotherapy, radiation. My youngest sister was my donor. She gave me her bone marrow cells. My younger sister, Donyega, I love her to death. She gave me her bone marrow cells. They were transplanted into me. And after that, my genotype changed from SS to AS.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how it works.
How was the experience itself? How a bone marrow transplant experience? What do you go through?
To be honest, it's not easy, and that's what the doctors will tell you. They wouldn't do a bone marrow transplant for a healthy sickle cell patient because of what you have to go through. They're basically going to strip you. So what the chemotherapy does is that it kills all the fast-growing cells in your body, it kills all your immunity in your body to give way for the new cells that are going to get into your body. And you cannot imagine what that does to you. So it's a very stressful, rigorous, gruesome process, and that was how it was for me too. It wasn't an easy journey, especially through chemotherapy, but I'm glad I'm at the other side of it.
Do we have Kachi from Abuja to ask a question?
Hold on.
Kachi?
Yes.
Are you following?
I can hear you now,
all right,
Steve.
yeah.
And lovely to have you.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes, of course. I was just going to say that within the FCT, recently I had a conversation with some sickle cell survivors about some of the challenges they've had to experience on their journey, as well as stigma. Now, what would you say are some of the most common misconceptions about people who have sickle cell, and how would you say that stigma, you've been able to manage it? Because it does exist, but I also find that there are a lot of survivors that are no longer affected by this.
Yes, the stigma. There's a very common one. Growing up, they used to say in the villages that those that have sickle cell anemia, they used to call them #Ogbanje.
Really?
Yes, and that was then when people didn't even know what the disease was. So if you see a child that keeps falling sick back to back to back, they just tag the child of Odbanje. But growing up, and this is why parents tend to hide the diagnosis from their kids. Personally, I didn't even know I had sickle cell anemia when I was growing up. They kind of hid it from me because if you come out and say, yes, I have sickle cell anemia, they just look at you as this weak child, this weakling. She can't do this, she can't do that. And that is what my foundation is about. We want to show you that there is life beyond sickle cell anemia. You can literally thrive while managing the disease. Yes, and that's what we're trying to push out there, to remove this stigma. So people don't look at individuals living with sickle cell anemia and just think they can amount to nothing. And yes, well-meaning individuals are keen into it. Having these conversations back to back are helping remove this stigma. And with our foundation, we go out there, we educate, we create awareness. I know on the 7th of April, which was my birthday this year, my foundation did free genotype and blood group testing, and well-meaning individuals keyed into it. For example, the wife of the Delta State House of Assembly Speaker, Mrs. Timiebi Guwar, she came into, she saw what we're doing outside and she keyed into it and she said, yes, I want to get more people tested. And we did that together. Right now, we're going into the creeks in the Niger Delta to meet those people that would not necessarily turn on their TV and see conversations like this. We want to go to them. Yes, definitely. It's my home. So we want to go to those people that don't have this access to information and give it to them and say, see, this is what this disease is about. This is how you can prevent it. You can get tested. You have to marry somebody that has a compatible genotype with you. If not, your kids can end up going through this path.
All right. Let me ask you very quickly before we start to round up. I read something about the sickle cell Association of Sickle Cell people living with sickle cell disorder in Anambra, speaking to Governor Soludo on Thursday and urging him to intervene as regards the menace of fake drugs, particularly herbalists and stuff like that, alternative medicine, claiming to have cure for sickle cell. What are your thoughts on that, particularly given the fact that at a time an intervention came through a local chewing stick called Oriata, and I know of a few people who use that in Lagos and in a few other states and who live to be 70, 80 with the disorder. Are we saying that without traveling to the US or India for bone marrow transplant or something, there's really no chance?
I've been a victim of that. When I was younger, my parents took me somewhere in Enugu State, and her herbalist cut into my chest. It wasn't just me, my younger sister, my elder brother. We both had sickle cell anemia. They cut into our chest, brought out some sort of thing, and they spit some herbs into the sore. And they told my parents, yeah, you're good, they're all cured, they don't have sickle cell anemia. But guess what? So I cannot speak to that because I can only speak to what the experience I just told you, and it didn't help. So I don't know about those persons chewing that stick, but the only known cure right now, FDA approved and everything, is the bone marrow transplant and the gene therapy. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's a very interesting question that he raises there, because I do see a lot of, you can have one bottle and it says it can fix 12 ailments, from high blood pressure to diabetes to everything. But also there is something to be said about us doing more proper investigation and data analysis when it comes to traditional medicines. But what we see in the West is not that, because even penicillin, all these things are coming from nature, but they're tested and, as you said, FDA approved.
Yeah.
But you've spoken a lot about reaching those who don't normally have access to information, because I think we have to round up now. And you've also spoken about some of the stigma as a child. But if someone who has sickle cell is watching now, maybe someone who's gone through crisis. I've seen people with sickle cell crisis. I know it's not an easy thing at all. What would your message to them be? What's your message of hope to the people who are looking at you, that you've come out on the other side of this journey?
So while I was living with sickle cell anemia, what I used to tell myself is what I would tell them. You have to hold on for the little light at the end of the tunnel, because I would be naive to say that everybody would get a bone marrow transplant or gene therapy, because it is a very expensive procedure. So For those that are not privileged enough to go through this journey that I have, I will tell you, hold on for that little light at the end of the tunnel. After every crisis, that little smile, that little time with family, look onto that, because that's what I would usually do. I would usually look forward to a next family event and say, okay, yes, after I go through this crisis, I'm going to meet these people. And that was what kept me on through the first 26 years of my life. So hold on, there's hope out there. And I love you.
Absolutely. Torubein, we want to thank you for joining us on the morning show today. And I believe that you'll be the last person that we need to advise us to. Now that you are here, you know what will be required when you have to make your choice, or if you've made the choice already. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.